Hey everybody, it's Baileywiki, and I've got a really interesting guest on today. It's Ironmonk. Hey Monk.
Hello.
Hey,
How's
so
it going?
if you guys haven't heard of Ironmonk, he is producing some of the coolest stuff in Foundry today. You guys have seen a lot of my coverage of active tiles, but this is going to be a series. It's either going to be 2 or 3 parts, depending on how much we can cover. But we're going to actually walk through with Ironmonk his whole portfolio of modules. And we're not going to go into detail into some of them, like particularly like active tiles, because I have a whole playlist of stuff to teach you guys on active tiles if you haven't picked it up yet. We are going to show you some new things, but then we're just going to walk through the rest of his portfolio. And in case you didn't know, Ironmonk, everything that he does is free. All of the modules that he's doing are free. So that's pretty awesome, Monk. Appreciate that.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I do. That's how I am, and I don't ever really intend to charge for my modules.
Yeah. Well,
I keep it
for
free.
those of us who appreciate you nonetheless and want to support you, which is,
Yay.
I'm in that camp. Like I think I've been supporting you for some time, and anyone else who wants to support Monk in his mission here, which is pretty awesome. Once we get into it, if just to kind of let everybody know, like, when I first saw active tiles, oh my gosh, this is like automation without macros. This is a really, really big deal. And I said it at the time. I said, this is, I think, the most important module to happen in the Foundry ecosystem in the last year. And there's been some pretty awesome modules put out there, but and people don't really understand that statement until they start playing around with this. But active tiles in what you've done, I mean, your development on it's been astounding. But even the very first version of it, I was like blown away. I'm like, I'm like automating everything with a GUI interface. Just to kick us off, like this is pretty good.
Yeah, and the fun thing about active tiles, it was the module that I coded the fastest out of all of them. It actually came around because like I was watching one of the Foundry dev updates where he was showing off lighting because like they're always showing off lighting.
Yeah.
But the very end, they were asking Andrew a question about like, what did he wish was in it or what does he want to show? And I remember him like moving his token around in a staircase and talking about like it. We would love to be able to, you know, move the token up the staircase and have it teleport to another map. And I was just sitting there thinking, okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
And so I sat on it for a while and was just thinking about like how would I go about that? And I'm like, I'm putting it off because I got another like a bunch of other modules to do. And I remember Friday night I I tried to go to sleep and I could not go to sleep. I was up until like 2 in the morning just coding in my head. And I think I said screwed it like Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Woke up at like 7 in the morning. I'm like, I'm not gonna sleep in, turn on my computer. I'm like, I just coded for like marathon code session
Yeah.
for Saturday and Sunday, and Active Tiles was born
I love it.
and
So
and did.
after
Yeah.
your hackathon, your weekend hackathon, we got
Oh yeah.
active tiles. Love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and what's important about it too is there's a lot of like really small modules out there that do like kind of one little thing, and
Yeah.
you can get 20 modules going just to do these one little things, and because they're small modules, they're the ones that are often the most likely to turn into zombies, and the
Yeah.
guy originally pushed him
Yeah.
out left, and so the fact that I can replace a lot of small modules with one, and frankly one that like can make something I did kind of small over here but add to it all these other steps, it's really, really powerful. It's really the one of the main modules I use, and as I design my maps and create interactions and stuff, it's I just couldn't have hoped for a better tool, and you keep pushing out more good stuff. So this is
Well,
not going to be, as I said, a tutorial on active tiles, but I did want you to just show me a couple of new things. Just like give the mob some red meat here, because you got some cool things I think that are interesting that maybe people don't know about right now.
so yeah, one of the newer things that had been added was the auto anchors, which I think is kind of cool. So you can do stuff like underscore GM,
Mm-hmm.
and oh, this is on enter. If you do on click, so if you're the GM and you click on this tile, it will go to the GM anchor immediately. if you add underscore player, then a player clicking it will go down to the player anchor.
Wow.
Yeah, so the other nice thing is if you have on enter or on exit, you can add an anchor for underscore enter, or guess which one I'm going to add now, underscore
Wow.
exit.
So I don't have to have
And
multiple tiles anymore. I used to,
no,
I have a tutorial on pressure plates, and I did it with multiple tiles.
yeah,
This eliminates that extra tile.
yeah, yeah,
Fascinating.
yeah, pretty much. So, I mean, people were doing it with macros before, where it would go to the macro, figure out what the method used to trigger this tile
Oh man.
was, and then return a go-to kind of thing. And I'm like, that's really bulky. That requires you to have a whole bunch of macros running around that have a very, very singular purpose. Whereas something like this, yeah, now you can make a difference between when somebody's entering, when somebody's exiting, right in the tile itself.
Yeah.
The same will
By
work
the way,
for.
Zephyr put together a bunch of interactions because we geek out on this stuff all the time, and we wanted to make some like kind of pre-built interactions. And he had them all macro driven, and then you came out with this. And he's like, "Well, I guess I'm refactoring all of my interactions," but it was a
No,
welcome change, right?
I know it, it moves really quickly, and like I'll give a shout out to the Discord community on my server because they come up with a ton of stuff that I hadn't thought of, and or they'll pose a question. I'm like, no, Active Tiles doesn't do that, but I can make it do it.
Yeah, and it
you
seems
know?
like the next day you've already pushed out that change. So we
Yeah,
love it. If you guys haven't gone to Ironmonk's Discord, it is a playground in there. It's a bunch of crazy people inventing new stuff all the time, and
yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
And I'll link to
There
it
are
in
some
the
amazing contributors there.
yeah, and I'll make sure I link to that in the show description too. Okay, so this is cool. I think you had one other thing to show me before we jump into maybe what I'll call the showcase of this, which is going to be your token bar.
So the a little hidden feature that got added a while back. If you have items
Hmm.
and want to drop like an item on the canvas, Active Tiles will automatically create it as a tile
Hmm.
with it will create it with the correct image, the
Hmm.
size of a canvas tile, with the correct actions that if a player
Whoa.
walks up to that item, they can click it and it will add it to its inventory.
You're kidding me. Wow. This is
Yeah.
all driven by active tiles?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Active Tiles senses it whenever you drop something onto the canvas, it goes, cool, let me intercept that, and generates the tile that
wow.
would do what you want it to do.
And now a player can come and pick up that item and it goes into their inventory.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah, exactly.
crazy. And it works with any item? Like I can drag any item from like my compendium or whatever and you'll just intercept it?
There we go. That's
Wow.
awesome.
That is incredible. Look at it's like a whole module's worth of functionality as a feature.
And
Okay. Okay, interesting. So, all right, guys, that's Active Tiles. I'll link to the playlist that I have on tutorials. There's a lot of other tutorials out there for Active Tiles. I recommend you guys take a look. And also, I will link to Krogard's wiki. I mentioned it in the past, and like the Russian hackers took it down, but now it's back up again. And
yay.
it's my go-to tool for when I'm working in Active Tiles. It's just a great resource for like how you
Yeah.
do a ton of things. And if you guys haven't checked that out yet, I'll link to it here as well. Okay, with that, let's put Active Tiles in the rearview mirror. Tell me about Tokenbar because there's a lot that this does.
The backstory of it, for those of you who don't know, I actually started with my own VTT and coded it for quite a few years until I discovered Foundry. So a lot of these modules are actually from pieces from my old VTT, which doesn't really, it
Wow.
doesn't exist at the moment. We're not going to go searching for it.
Yeah, but it
Um,
explains why you've got so many, I would say, well thought out and novel
yeah.
pieces of functionality in these modules. Is this isn't your first time thinking about this stuff.
No, yeah, I actually had like written it, worked it out, and Token Bar was one of those things that already existed in in my VTT. So like when I came over to Foundry, I'm like, I kind of want that functionality that I got used to.
Yeah.
And so that's where it came from.
Brilliant. Okay, good.
It,
Well, show us what you got. Show us what it does.
so first and foremost, it's down here.
Mm-hmm.
And first and foremost, it was a way for the GM to keep track of like the primary information that you want to know about your actors or the characters, the player characters. So essentially, what their passive perception is and what their AC is. You can also show the health bars
Mm-hmm.
down here, so you can see what your player characters are looking at. You can also, when clicking on the character, it will select that player character. You also, if you right click on the character, you can send the player that owns that character a private message. Quickly edit the character, the token, edit the stats that are being displayed. So each token here can have a custom stats that they want, just in case you want to look after the mana from the
Yeah.
wizard. You don't care for looking at that for the barbarian.
Yeah. Hey, by the way,
Um,
is this D&D 5e specific, or what are our
No,
constraints?
I mean, yes and no. We'll get to the parts that are kind of like the parts that depend on me having to code a connection between Tokenbar and that system.
Yeah.
And primarily that's the when you request a role, because every system does it slightly differently. So it's not just across the board, I can let it go and do its thing. I actually have to specifically code for each system. But stats, looking at the characters down here, well, and the other one's targeting the token and then changing the movement. That is all independent of 5e, which is also another thing that, like, to point out, the game does not have to be paused. The game can actually be like live and going, and you can click on token bar and set the movement to nobody moves.
Brilliant.
Because when I was GMing, there's a couple of times where I'm like, something just happened, but I need you all to stop. So most of the time right now, like, you'd have to pause the game, but there are times that I don't want the game paused. I want the players to still be able to do stuff. I just don't want them moving around.
That's
Um,
great. I could see this being really valuable too. In like, I make a lot of multi-dimensional, multi-level maps, right, with Rippers levels
yeah,
modules, and the ability to click to each player because they might be on different levels, like that's helpful. The ability to stop some players' movements because a lot of
yeah.
these maps can be kind of open exploration until you kind of get to a certain area. This is all very helpful.
And the fun thing is also the last one is you can set the movement to combat turn so that
Mm.
the players can only move their token when it's their turn in combat.
Wow.
Um, and there is a setting in there, which I would recommend using because I use it all the time, is that the previous combatant does get to move, which allows you to do your actions, do your stuff. We're going to move on to the next person, but you clean up your movement because some people like to duck behind a corner.
Oh yeah. Okay.
If you're
Yeah.
playing a
All the
rogue,
time.
yeah. So that gives you the option to like move forward as a GM and let that previous person clean up their movement while you carry on.
Love it.
Yeah, and you can set the movement specifically for that token.
Oh, great. Okay,
Um,
so that's a global change on the left versus a token specific change
yeah,
on the right. Okay,
yeah,
wonderful.
exactly.
Great.
And if you happen to like change it, it will clear it out.
Perfect.
So yeah.
Awesome.
Um, the ways that it integrates with active tiles is these little dialogues, which let you request a roll. So if the more common one, perception roll, you can now request from your players to do a perception roll, and that will come up in the chat bar. Give them a
Hmm.
little notification, and each of them can click on their dice and roll
Wow.
like they would normally roll. A
Oh,
horrible roll.
sorry. Yeah, it's terrible.
The other nice thing about this is, and this does work into what active tiles can do as well. You can select all the actors that participated in this role. You can select the ones that
Oh,
passed,
yeah.
or you can select the ones that failed. So if the people that failed they're going to suffer a teleport or something, you can select them from here.
Brilliant.
The other nice thing that people might not know exists is there's a one over here called the grab message roll. So if either of these players who
Hmm.
control these actors, if either of them rolled a perception check on their own, because you called it out and said,
Hmm.
let's roll a perception check, and they did it before you got this menu up,
Hmm.
you can click on the grab, click on that other message, and it will take the roll from that message, put it into this message, and remove the other one.
Wow, you thought of everything. That's amazing.
Hey. Yeah, so we've also got contested roll. So if you want to, like, your players battling against a skeleton, you want to grapple, you can request a contested roll between the two.
Hmm. Wow.
And the skeleton won. So our players are not having a good day today. Right? But yeah. And then lastly is you can divide experience.
Oh, okay. It's got an
Between players.
experience
Yeah.
distribution tool there.
And
Great.
and at the end of a combat, Tokenbar will also pop up two dialogues. One, to convert any of the enemies into loot. And it does connect with enhanced journals, Monk's enhanced journals, loot sheet, item. Oh my god, item piles. Sorry,
Yeah.
edit that.
From Wasp, right? Item piles from
Yes,
Wasp. Yeah.
item piles, and merchant sheet. Although I haven't heard much from merchant sheet in a while, but it's there. You can convert into that.
Wow.
Um,
Are there any global settings that we should know about for Tokenbar?
oh, I'm sure there's a ton. There's a lot. I hope that they're like straightforward, but um, the other settings that you can get into is allowing the player to use it. So it defaults to set up as the GM using
Sure.
it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is nice to allow the players to see their own player. Because a lot of times as a player, if I'm scrolling around the map, I kind of lose track of where my token
Oh yeah.
was.
Okay.
It's somewhere. But if you let the players have access to the token bar, they will only see their player there.
That next one, that disabled token bar, I've seen that used. I've used it myself where I didn't know what token bar did, and it had a UI element there, but I was using it very heavily and still do for active tiles. And
Yeah,
so that's
yeah,
for if for those of us who aren't using it or prefer not to use it in the UI, and you still want all the active tiles integration.
yeah, yeah,
Very
exactly.
very helpful.
Yeah, you can say change the size of the tokens on there because some people would like larger tokens, which is awesome. Token resolution, which is a new thing that has been added because the tokens that get displayed on the token bar are thumbnails that get created because like sometimes some of these images can be pretty big.
Great. So you're
Um,
optimizing it for performance too.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Love that.
I do, and on some displays, I optimize it a bit too much, which is, where the token resolution, I've added that, so you can increase the picture quality if you want.
And I'm assuming that's not a client specific setting, right? That's just a global setting that the GM sets and everybody gets the same
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Oh, you can also change what you want to see there, whether you want to see the token image or the actor
Perfect.
portrait. You can show inspiration, so if the player has inspiration, the GM knows that they have
Oh, okay.
inspiration.
Wow.
Um, You can change if they notify, if the movement changes. You can change when combat starts, it will immediately change to combat movement.
Oh, okay. Great.
Um, you can also allow the player to move NPCs during their turn. And what that means is if you summon any creatures
Yeah.
or if you have any companions, then you get a chance to move those.
Got it.
And here's the setting I was talking about, allowing movement after your turn.
Yep.
And then what movement happens after the combat is done. Here's all it will actually whisper to you if a player will level up after the combat is done and you've assigned XP.
Cool. And this is where some of those integrations for loot are that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Great. Man,
So
I
I think
didn't
I was
know it
gonna.
did so much, especially on the loot side. And we're going to talk about enhanced journals in the next, I think in the next video, because that's a whole other thing, right? But this is
There's
great.
a lot to talk about with enhanced gems.
Yeah. Okay, great. And
So
yeah,
the integration with I'm just choosing a random tile. It's a rock.
yeah.
You know, a rock's going to get them to request a roll. So it's down at the bottom because active tiles will integrate with other modules. So other modules out there can actually intercept some code and put in their own actions when active tile is running. At the moment, all of these are added by me, mostly because I'm like, I don't know if they, if I change how stuff happens, and it has happened, then I have a whole bunch of people to contact to let know that you now need to change your code.
Yep.
But if there's anybody who has a module out there that has some specific actions that you would like active tiles to do, let me know, and I can integrate it pretty easily.
Wow, I'm looking at stuff I didn't know that little details integrated. I didn't realize everything from Enhanced Journal. I guess maybe we'll get into those when we get in.
Yeah, okay. Maybe we'll handle this when we get to the modules.
Sure,
Remind me to go back here
I will.
and have a look at it. Um, but for Monk's Tokenbar, so you can get it to change the movement, and then you can get it to request a roll. And I think the big ones, yeah, would be changing the movement. So if you walk onto a tile, you can stop everybody from moving, which is nice if something's about to happen.
Yeah.
And then you can also request a roll. So if you have a tile that's a trap, you can use Tokenbar to stop that token from moving, and then request a roll. The last thing that I would like to point out, I do get tagged a lot with people confused as to why player tokens aren't appearing on Tokenbar.
Oh, okay.
And for the player tokens to appear on the Tokenbar, they have to be owned by a player and they have to be friendly disposition.
Ah, okay.
And I did this specifically so that you can have companions, which can be set to neutral disposition and not appear on the bar.
Ah, okay. Great.
If you absolutely want somebody to appear on the bar or not appear on the bar, if you open up the token configuration, down at the bottom is show on token bar.
Ah, okay. So you can just like
So
push it through and make sure it shows up.
yeah,
Anything else on Token Bar before we go through fast time, kind of move through some of these quality of life modules that you got for us?
I think I've covered everything.
I think this is pretty satisfying for me.
You know,
Well, let's jump into it. Tell me about. So the first one I got on my list is Breaktime. What is that?
break time. That's because when I was running a game and we all decided to take a break and we went off, got some water and came back, and we were waiting for one guy to come back, and we're sitting there just chatting and whatnot. And it turns out that he'd actually been back for like 10, 15 minutes. So that's where this module came from, is that when you go for a break, it will list out the people that are involved in your game, and when you're back, you click and it shows that cool, you're back, you're good to go. You can also individually, as a player, on the token menu, there's a little door and you can say that you're stepping away for a second.
Okay, tell me about Always HP.
HP, that's this module up here, and that was developed basically because like HP is that thing that we deal with all the time
Yeah.
in combat. And one of the things that I find, time consuming is having to find my token, click on the token, select the value, put in -2, and oh crap, I forgot. You have to press enter to take out some HP if I've been damaged in combat. So what Always HP does is it will show you who's selected at the moment, how much hit points they have, and then if you just type in to enter, it removes 2.
How do you can you heal from here?
Yeah, so if you put +2, it'll heal.
Got it. Great.
The fun thing is you can also do plus. Oop, my cursor's in the way. Plus T3, which will give you 3 temporary hit points,
Oh,
and it will recognize that there's temporary hit points there and use them before your actual hit points.
nice.
You can also like decrease by 1, increase by 1. You can heal fully, or you can kill a player.
Can't wait to use that.
And it will give you death saving throws.
Oh,
So it'll
okay.
keep track of the death saving throws or the successful death saving throws.
Great. And that's just dynamic. It changes depending on what token I've got selected.
Yeah. Also, as the GM, select multiple
Whoa.
and hit all of them for 5.
Okay, so that's always HP. Hotbar Expansion. This is one that I use.
So Hotbar Expansion is just a really simple module. So if you click on the number, it will show you all of the rows. So this is everything that you got going on. I don't have any macros loaded up here, but you can drag and drop between all of the rows. You can now click on one of the macros that's on one of these rows. You can clear out the entire row, which I like because you can set it up for set up a row for your big bad guy.
Sure.
But at the end of the fight, when the big bad guy is gone, you can click the trash can and clear it out and get it ready for a different one. And you can also click on the number here to select which one you want. So you can easily navigate through your macros.
When I do my tutorials, people ask me regularly, "What on earth are all those macros you're always using?" And I use this to help me manage all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's a feature request. Give me templates, because I use a bunch of macros in my live games, then I use a bunch of macros when I'm doing building sessions, and it would be really cool to be able to swap those out. Anyway,
Cool.
I think I just mentioned something to you. I'm sure by tomorrow you're going to have something out. So
yeah.
Well, tell me about scene navigation next.
Scene navigation is the thing up at the top, and I well, I wasn't a big fan of the way that Foundry did scenes.
Yeah, it's
in
a
that
little bit clunky. Yeah,
it's a little bit clunky. I appreciate having a lot of like symmetry, so I like having things all the same size, and having the scene get bigger or smaller depending on what the name of the scene was. I kind of wanted it to be like uniform. The other thing that I wanted to do is allow folders to it. So you can see on the scenes directory
sidebar.
on the side there.
Mm-hmm.
I've got my scenes and directories, and if I'm putting my scenes and directories, they're there for a reason. For me to keep track of them, for me to know where stuff is. So that's part of scene navigation, is that you can now drop down into folders in it.
That's super helpful.
Yeah. So
well, you
when I
put
was running,
you put this town scenes folder in here probably because you figured out that I have a whole town that's got like 13 neighborhoods in it, and they're all related. And that's great to be able to have them all in one area and navigatable. Is really awesome.
Some of the nice things that you can do with scene navigation as well is if you double click on a scene, it will automatically activate it.
Okay.
So
versus just single click, it just takes me there. I can view it and jump back to where I was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. The other nice thing is if you move the map and at the end of the day you want to save where you are, right click, you can set the view position.
Oh, great.
So that will, next time you load up this map, it will leave you at that location. It also changes some of the stuff on the directory, so you can see which maps you've set to be navigatable to, so your players can go to them. You can see which ones you have specifically given a player access to. So this one I've given player 2 specific access to this map.
And by the way, I like he loaded all of my recent ruins maps on here, which
it's a little showcase here.
Yeah, love it.
But yeah, we can move on to enhanced terrain layer. So what it does is basically just a library to keep track of areas that are going to be difficult terrain, or areas that have a different kind of terrain. They don't actually have to be difficult. You can, as you can see right here, I've drawn some of the rubble, outlined it as difficult terrain. It's relatively easy. You just start clicking and describe an area that, there you go, would be difficult terrain. So when your players are moving across a surface, it will show you that actually costs twice as much movement to get across as
Ah,
normal.
cool.
As I said before, it is just a library. So what you are going to need to get that part that I just showed you to
Hmm.
work are two other modules that I would recommend:
Okay.
Train Ruler and Drag Ruler. Um, because me and the developer of those modules have worked together to make sure that the two work well together.
Great. I just took a note of that. I'll link to those also in the video description.
So up here you can change what the default is for the ruler. If you go into the scene itself, there will be a train tab,
Hmm.
and you can set the defaults for that scene. So right now the cost is blank because you're basically saying, hey, there's no real default for this scene. And it will defer to cost over on the toolbar.
Okay.
But if there was something there, if we put in like the default is 4, because everything here is really hard to walk through,
Hmm.
then it will show you over here that the default is set from the scene, and this number over here doesn't really matter
Hmm. Okay.
because the scene has already dictated how much it's going to.
Got
Uh,
it.
yeah. So if you draw a new one now, the default's going to default to 4.
Oh,
If
cool.
you drew it and you're like, no, let's change that, you can go right into it and you can actually change it to like 0.5.
Oh, wow.
So it costs half movement to go through it. Each tile itself can, or each terrain itself can set what it wants to do.
Wow.
Um, you can also set the color. You can set the opacity of it. So, like, if you don't want the player to actually see that there's a terrain there, you can
Hmm.
turn it off. Um,
Or I could just hide the drawing, right? But does that?
oh, no, hiding the drawing will actually deactivate it.
Oh,
Um,
okay. So we got three more on our list. Tell me about sound enhancements. And this is a GM only. This one and the next one, wall
yeah.
enhancements, are GM only.
So, sound enhancements was one of those things that with sound, especially I found if I had a playlist in a compendium,
Hmm.
and this is mostly based around the compendium, but if I had a playlist in the compendium, I had no idea what was in it.
Mm,
And the only way to know what was in it is to import the entire thing.
yeah.
So if I had a playlist, and I do have a playlist of sound effects, the only way I had to get a specific sound effect was to import that entire playlist
Hmm.
and go through all of the items. Sound enhancements will let you, when you open up a playlist, gives you another tab that will show you all of the sounds that are in there.
Cool.
Um, you can play each sound individually. I don't know if the sound comes
Yeah,
through here.
I'm hearing it. Yeah.
It is? Okay,
Yeah.
so you can check on each sound to see if like this is what you actually want it to do. In your playlist, you can drag and drop the one that you want
Wow.
into your playlist. The other nice thing is if you have your playlist, but you only want specific songs, you can pick the ones that you want, then import it, and it will only pull those ones in for you.
Nice.
So you
Boy,
don't have to.
talk about something you wish Foundry did already.
Right? Well, yeah, this is one of those things that I was like, yeah, we can do it a little better. We can
Yeah,
do it better.
that's great. Okay, so that's sound enhancements. You also got wall enhancements.
So the thing with wall enhancements, is it gives you the option to freehand draw a wall. So
Wow.
if you want to draw the stone,
What?
oh yeah, and draw around it, and there
Wow.
you go. It will figure out the most efficient set of walls to describe that shape.
It's amazing.
Things that people might not know that you can do is you can also draw a shape,
Hmm.
select the shape, and there's a button down here that says convert to walls,
Wow.
and it will convert the drawing to walls.
Great.
Other things that it will do is I find that there's a lot of modules that tend to add to stuff to the wall thing, and so I added a pop-out menu
Oh, great.
for all the different types of walls, just to save space, to conserve some screen
Yeah,
property.
my buttons cascade across 2 rows now. There's so many of them.
Other things that the wall enhancement module will do is when you snap 2 points together, you can now drag those 2 points
Oh, that's nice.
together.
That's awesome.
Other things is if you're like this corner, you can double click and it will split that line.
Nice.
So you can add just a little bit of a point there. And there's a cleanup function that if you press it, it will go through all the walls and find if there's any points that are pretty close to each other that they should be touching and make them touch.
Ooh, nice. So I think that's where we're going to leave it today with Monk. Tune in next time. We're going to get into some other modules of his, like common display for when you've got people gathered around a common display. And then we're going to talk about Little Details, which is Monk's sort of collection of improvements, general improvements, quality of life stuff for Foundry. And then the last episode is going to be going into really his opus work, Enhanced Journal. It's really got a lot of amazing things, a lot of things that I'm going to be discovering along with you guys. And with that, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Leave in the comments anything you want us to go into more detail on. And in the meantime, have fun making your maps.